8.2, the next section, is linking fractions, decimals, and percents. So linking fractions, decimals, and percents. And I think this is going to be another section that has some review in it. We did fractions, decimals already this year, yes? That sounded familiar to me at least. So I'm going to start out by writing this here. Put a star by it, make it red for dramatic emphasis. I'm going to say a percent can be written as the percent over 100. And if we wanted to do some examples of that, you could say 54% then equals 54 over 100. And this is what we were doing in the last section, right? If we're going to write it as a fraction, we really should take our fraction and reduce it. So we could say that's 27 over 50. 21% is the same as 21 over 100. Sounds like we need to move on because everybody knows what's going on. We're okay up to there? Yep. Then really the only other thing, my second star, converting decimals and percents. So converting decimals to and from percents. I'm just going to do an arrow going both ways and do it that way. So converting decimals to percents. And this is something that you may already know. It comes up over and over and over and over and over until you're done doing percents. So please, my friends, if there's one thing in this section you're going to learn, it's this. Move the decimal 2 places when switching. So move the decimal.
Oh, I know how to do this.
2 places when switching. So when switching from a decimal to a percent, you move the decimal place 2 places. Now, if you forget which direction you're moving, you could take one that you probably know. Do you agree if I gave you 50% of my donuts, you would get what fraction of my donuts?
We'd get 30% part quadrant.
If I gave you 50% of my donuts, you get what fraction?
2/4.
Yep, you get 1/2. You agree 1/2 is the same as 0.5?
Yeah.
Or some people, they struggle with seeing that, but 0.50, you could look at it that way too, not as simplified with a 0. But essentially, if you're trying to go from a percent to a decimal, do you agree the decimal point was originally right there? 50 point? So if you want to do percent to decimal, we have to take and do 2 jumps to the left, right? So then, basically we're saying that you go this way for percent to a decimal. And if instead you're looking at going the opposite direction, say I'm over here on the left, so I'm over here on the right, and I want to go from 0.5 to a percent, do you agree you just would go 2 rights this way, or 2 jumps this way? And that would now give you the 50%. So in other words then, you go this way for a decimal to a percent. And for the most part, you'll probably just get this mastered. I mean, it'll just start to make sense to you. But it's always 2 jumps. The mistake is people get used to seeing, the most common mistake I see is people get used to seeing things like a decimal is point and then the number. And then they don't do it 2 jumps all the way, or all the time. So I'm just going to rattle off a bunch of them down here, and you can copy them down if you so choose. But let's say, let's go for brown. So one example then would be, a common one would maybe be like, all right, 37%. 37% is going to be what decimal? Nice, 0.37. Could do that. If I were to go with an 8%, maybe I should back up to the 37%. 37%, the decimal point was here. We move it 2 jumps, so 1 jump gets between the 3 and 7, second jump in front. Agreed? So then we have the 0.37. 8% ends up being written as...
0.808.
Yep. So I often just get kind of lazy and do the 0.08. The book will put zeros in front of the decimal too, but you have to do 2 jumps. So when I start here at the 8, 1 jump gets me in front of the 8. I have to do a second jump, so I have to put a 0 in front as a placeholder. Does that make sense? Yeah. You see ones like that. I could try to make it look, really that's really the whole step. I could try to make it look worse and do things like 74.3%. 74.3% as a decimal is .743. That even though you have that extra decimal on there, and now we get 3 numbers after the decimal place, you just do that same sort of thing. Starts here, you go 2 jumps left. Agreed?
Yes.
If I were to instead give you a decimal, let's say 0.56, what percent's that going to be? Nice, 56%. So we still go 2 decimal places, but now we're going the opposite direction. So 0.56, go 2 to the right, which then gives me the 56 point, or 56%. If I were to give you a 0.02, what's 0.02 as a percent?
2%.
2%. Nice. Because you still take and just jump 2 to the right, so 1 jump gets you here, 2nd jump gets you there. So it becomes the 2%. Very last one. If I do 0.004, 4%? Not 4. 0.4%. Or a 0.4 if you want to write it like the way the book usually does. Because you still do 2 jumps, but the 2 jumps just gets us in front of the 4, so we have the 0.4%. So you have to be a little careful you don't just jump to what number you think it is. It's real common that people for this last one will say 4%. You have to just always think it's always 2 jumps. Every time it's always 2 jumps. That's all I have.